High intelligence often comes with a quiet, unspoken cost, isolation. Not the kind that comes from being physically alone, but the deeper kind that emerges when your inner world no longer matches the pace or concerns of those around you. A highly intelligent mind observes patterns others overlook, questions assumptions others accept, and feels contradictions others ignore. Over time, this creates a psychological distance. Conversations begin to feel shallow, social rituals repetitive, and emotional exchanges strangely unsatisfying. You are present, yet not fully met. Carl Jung understood that when consciousness expands, belonging often contracts. The more clearly you see reality, the harder it becomes to participate in it unconsciously. This is why intelligent individuals often withdraw, not out of arrogance, but out of exhaustion. They learn early that explaining themselves requires effort, and being understood is never guaranteed. So they grow inward, building rich inner landscapes, while feeling increasingly disconnected from the outer world. But this isolation is not a flaw. It is a signal. It invites the individual to develop depth rather than dependency, meaning rather than approval. When you stop seeking to be understood by everyone, you gain the freedom to understand yourself fully. And that ultimately is where true belonging begins. With high intelligence, the mind rarely rests. Thought multiplies thought, and awareness turns inward again and again, searching for clarity, certainty, and control. What begins as insight can slowly become a burden. The intelligent mind does not simply experience life, it dissects it. Every conversation is replayed, every decision examined, every possibility calculated. This constant mental activity creates the illusion of mastery, yet often produces the opposite, paralysis. When every option is visible, choosing one can feel impossible. Jung warned that an overdeveloped intellect, when unbalanced, can distance a person from life itself. Overthinking disconnects the individual from instinct, intuition, and emotional truth. Instead of acting, they evaluate. Instead of feeling, they analyze. The mind becomes a courtroom where every impulse must justify its existence. Over time, this leads to anxiety, self-doubt, and a subtle erosion of confidence, not because the person lacks ability, but because they trust their thoughts more than their inner compass. The task is not to think less, but to know when thinking has served its purpose. Mastery begins when intelligence learns restraint. A mind that can stop is far more powerful than a mind that never does. High intelligence often brings emotional depth that is both a gift and a wound. Intelligent individuals don't merely feel emotions. They explore them, trace their origins, and relive them in memory. This depth allows for profound empathy and creativity, but it also means pain is rarely simple or fleeting. Disappointment lingers, loss echoes, and unresolved experiences, especially from childhood, are carried forward with remarkable clarity. The mind remembers what the heart has not yet healed. Jung believed that greater consciousness exposes the shadow more vividly. The intelligent person becomes aware not only of suffering in the world, but of their own inner contradictions, fears, and unspoken desires. This awareness intensifies emotional experience, where others may suppress or forget. The intelligent mind reflects and revisits. As a result, emotional wounds are not easily buried. They are analyzed, interpreted, and sometimes reopened. Yet this pain is not meaningless. It serves as raw material for psychological growth. Emotional depth demands integration, not avoidance. When feeling is honored rather than intellectualized away, suffering transforms into wisdom. The intelligent individual must learn to sit with discomfort without turning it into a problem to solve. Pain becomes purposeful only when it is consciously faced. What you fully feel, you no longer fear, and what you no longer fear no longer controls you. As intelligence sharpens perception, social belonging often becomes more complicated. Highly intelligent individuals quickly recognize the unspoken rules that govern group behavior. What can be said, what must be hidden, and which truths are unwelcome. To belong, they learn to edit themselves. They soften their language, suppress their curiosity, and silence thoughts that might disrupt harmony. Over time, this constant self-adjustment creates a quiet fracture between the inner self and the social mask. Jung described this as identification with the persona, the version of ourselves designed to function in society. For the intelligent person, the persona can become especially heavy. When your inner life is complex, but your outer expression is simplified to fit in, a sense of falseness emerges. You may appear connected, yet feel internally divided. This division drains energy and erodes authenticity, leading to emotional fatigue and detachment from relationships that once felt meaningful. The danger is not isolation, but forgetting who you are beneath the mask. True belonging does not require self-betrayal, it requires selective honesty. When you stop performing for acceptance and begin expressing from alignment, connections may become fewer, but they become real. And one genuine bond is worth more than 100 superficial ones, because authenticity restores what conformity slowly takes away. High intelligence brings with it an unsettling clarity. The mind begins to see through appearances, social roles, cultural promises, and comforting narratives that give life a sense of order. What once felt meaningful may now appear performative, hollow, or driven by fear. This awareness can be deeply destabilizing. When illusions fall away, so do many of the emotional supports that help people endure uncertainty. Optimism weakens, certainty dissolves, and the world feels more fragile than it once did. Jung understood that consciousness expands at a cost. To see more is to carry more. The intelligent individual becomes aware of contradictions in human nature, of injustice embedded in systems, and of the gap between what people claim to value and how they actually live. This awareness can breed cynicism or emotional fatigue if it is not integrated properly. The danger is mistaking disillusionment for truth and despair for realism. Yet clarity is not meant to paralyze. It is meant to refine. When illusions disappear, responsibility appears. You are no longer protected by ignorance, but you are freed from self-deception. The task is to rebuild meaning consciously, rather than inheriting it unconsciously. Wisdom is not found in what you lose when illusions break, but in what you choose to create once you can no longer lie to yourself. The final challenge of high intelligence is learning mastery rather than excess. Intelligence, left unchecked, expands endlessly. It questions, analyzes, and anticipates without pause. But wisdom begins where intelligence learns discipline. Jung believed that growth is not the accumulation of more knowledge, but the integration of what already exists within the psyche. Without this integration, intelligence fragments the self, pulling attention in too many directions at once. The highly intelligent individual must learn to govern the mind instead of being governed by it. This means knowing when to engage thought and when to step back into direct experience. It means allowing intuition to speak without immediately dissecting it, and permitting action without demanding absolute certainty. Mastery is not control over the world, but alignment within the self. When thought, emotion, and instinct cooperate, intelligence becomes grounded rather than overwhelming. This inner discipline transforms awareness into resilience. Instead of being consumed by insight, the individual learns to use it. Clarity becomes strength, depth becomes stability, and self-knowledge becomes freedom. Intelligence no longer isolates, it integrates, and in that integration, the hidden cost of intelligence is repaid as meaning. A mind you can command becomes a life you can direct.